3 billionaires have been made by Microsoft, one of the biggest computer businesses in the world, but it's also produced more than 1,000 millionaires. That's a substantial sum. In reality, thanks in large part to the development of the internet and globalization, we today have more millionaires than ever before. Making money or retaining it is difficult though, as the world is changing so quickly that if you are an astute, you could lose your riches in an instant. Because of this, the typical millionaire has 7 sources of income. If something goes wrong, you don't want to put all of your eggs in one basket. You will perish. Let's investigate the various sources of income now. Number 1. Ordinary income. Ordinary income, the most typical sort of revenue, also includes wages, salaries, bonuses, and commissions. It occurs when you voluntarily exchange money for your time. Naturally, it has its own restrictions because you always have a limited amount of time, but that's not the only issue with this source of revenue. The US government received $3.3 trillion in tax revenue in 2018, and that came from income taxes to the tune of 51%. In contrast, only 80% of the government's revenue comes from the corporate income tax. Payroll taxes, which are supposed to be shared by you and your employer to pay for benefits like Social Security and Medicare, account for another 35% of total income. However, studies have shown that the companies transfer their share of the expenses to employees. Due to this, those with earned income pays 86% of all taxes, while those with billions of dollars pay nearly nothing. It's the simplest source of money in one sense because you don't need to put much thought into it or take any chances. Some skill sets will help you land a job. It is therefore heavily taxed, but it's completely unsustainable because losing this job would mean losing your only source of money. But fear not, you will discover in this video what kind of income millionaires or billionaires have to generate that much money while entirely evading taxes. Number 2. Capital gains. When you purchase an item such as a stock or piece of real estate and later sell it for a greater price, you get capital gains. Your capital gain is at profit margin. Let's imagine you spend $10,000 to purchase 100 stocks at a cost of $100 each. When the stock price reaches $120, you decide to sell it and receive $12,000. Your capital gain is therefore $2,000. The normal tax rate on long-term capital gains is 15 to 20% at the best and 37% in the short term. And if you pay attention, you'll notice that millionaires love it. Not just because the tax rate is only 20%, but also because with the right planning, you may effectively pay no tax at all. The first method is really simple. Don't sell at all. Keep your investment in place. No matter how much money you make, you are not required to pay a cent in taxes. But not everyone might find it effective. To have cash on hand, you might need to sell some of your investments. There is a backup plan because of this. Taking advantage of tax breaks, it occurs when you sell a financial investment at a loss in order to lower your tax obligation. It doesn't make sense at first glance. Why would you deliberately make a loss? I'll explain. Consider that you're a seasoned investor with a variety of equities in your holdings. The $300,000 gain in your stock A is fantastic. Unfortunately, the price of your stock B dropped by 25%, making your $200,000 investment now only worth $150,000. Let's further assume that you want to raise $50,000 by selling some of your stock. You ought to pay a capital gains tax of 15% or about $7,500. But there is an alternative. To realize your loss, first sell your stock B for $1.5 million and then spend that same amount on a comparable investment. Since you can demonstrate that you have a realized loss of $50,000, you can deduct it from your tax bill. So if you sell stock A for $50,000, you can write off the $50,000 loss. Your tax bill is suddenly $0. It's much more intricate than this, and I've left out a lot of important aspects in the process, but that's the general concept. The process is typically automated by a computer using a certain algorithm, which makes it considerably simpler than doing it by hand. Investors repeatedly realize losses by selling their subpar investments and reinvesting the proceeds into comparable assets because losses may be carried forward indefinitely. As a result, you either pay very little or no taxes when you make a capital gain. Number 3. Dividend income. You can earn money from stock purchases in other ways as well. Even if you only own a tiny portion of the company, having stock in it is equivalent to having ownership in it. And it makes sense given that businesses today generate trillions of dollars in revenue. Additionally, as one of the owners, the business must pay you a dividend from its revenues. However, businesses that generate billion-dollar profits like Google, Boeing, or Facebook typically don't pay dividends because they want to spend their earnings. Because of this, the majority of investors are more focused on the stock price than the dividend. But businesses like Apple do distribute dividends. Apple distributed a dividend to stockholders on November 1st in an amount of 73 cents per share. Although that is not much, it is better than nothing. The amount of dividend income that is taxed is determined by your income tax bracket, which is typically between 12 and 24%. Although there's still a way to do so, we'll save it for another video. Number 4. Rental income. Most people definitely prefer rental income. You purchase a home and then you rent it out. Most of it is passive, requiring little actual participation on your part. However, in my experience, it takes considerably longer than most people realize. Tenants come and go, some remain for a short while others do so for several years. Some people look after your property, while others could care less. It has its advantages and disadvantages. Some pay on time and won't cause you a single trouble, while others are just extra hassles. But you can also rent out commercial property to companies, which is sometimes a better idea. You could theoretically rent practically anything, from your phone to your car. However, the most typical one is real estate. Number 5. Royalty income. Jeff Bezos, a man, submitted a patent application for an online ordering system in 1997. Instead, you could just click buy instead of first adding the item to your cart and then clicking buy on Amazon. It seems so straightforward that nobody should have thought to patent it, but over the past 20 years, Amazon has gained billions by licensing this invention to businesses like Apple. Due to the possibility of future revenue, businesses often apply for patents even when they're not necessary. The true passive income is this. Even when your work is over, you still get paid, so that includes activities like book writing and film production. The majority of the time, artists choose this source of funding. For instance, musicians typically earn money by allowing others to use or sell their music. Number 6. Interest income. It's one of the simplest and quickest ways to get money. You aren't actively participating in it, so it's more of a passive income. The rate of return is therefore often substantially lower than with other types of investing. When you issue bonds to the government, banks, or businesses, you're lending them money. Most of the time, the bank will take your money and lend it to another party at a greater interest rate. It continues to collect the money from the borrower before paying you back your share of the bargain and keeping the remainder for itself. Simply put, that is how banks generate revenue. Bonds are a common way for the government to raise funds. Consequently, when you purchase a bond, you're actually lending money to the government. Number 7. And finally, business income. That's exactly what it refers to. The money you make from running a business, either through making a sale or offering some sort of service. And all of these sources of income, this is probably the most significant because while the goal of the other sources of income is to minimize taxes, you can typically expect a return of 5, 10, or even 15%. However, with this source of income, a business, you can expect a return of 1000% with just $100, especially now that we have the internet. Having several sources of income is obviously beneficial. Even if one stops working, you still have a lot of others going. It is a significant distraction though. It takes a full-time job to oversee one source of revenue. What do you suppose will happen if there are several of them? So don't switch between incomes abruptly. Focus all of your energy on learning one of them, and when you've mastered it to the point where you can easily start making money from another source, switch to it. And if you examine it more closely, that's how individuals initially become wealthy. Most of these concepts have been oversimplified in order to keep the video as brief as possible, but I think it's crucial to comprehend the many sources of revenue. Because of this, the wealthy continues to accumulate wealth while paying minimal taxes, while the middle class gets taxed at a rate of 40%. That's all for now. We hope you enjoyed yourselves and learned something new. If you did, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button so you don't miss any of our videos. Click on our previous videos and learn 7 passive income ideas with little money, or click on how to obtain millionaire status in 2022 to keep your knowledge growing.